think by coin toss. If I understand, it was won by Jim Langfelder, but he opted to go second. So Paul Palazzolo will start with his first opening statement.
And thanks to Midwest Family Broadcasting and the State Journal-Register for hosting tonight's event. It's been said that there's not a lot of differences between the two of us, the two candidates. Well, other than double-digit poundage, I believe that there's several differences that I'd like to highlight. First of all, a sense of transparency, either from a personal standpoint of transparency, where I've offered to release 5 years' worth of my family's tax returns, to official transparency, looking at our office's website and how you'll find all official documents on the County Auditor's Office website, but I'm looking for pension board minutes on the City Treasurer's website. When it comes to trash pickup and how that should be billed, I believe that we should not punish those who do comply because of a few who don't comply by putting the trash hauling bill onto the CWOP bill. We differ when it comes to electricity. Right now, we need reliability at low cost to attract new businesses, customers, and residents to the city of Springfield. Alternative energy is more inexpensive to start up. And I also believe that we disagree on the performance of our duties. In both of our positions, county auditor and city treasurer, it's inherent for the concept of check and balance in both of our roles. Just as Dan Hines as state controller and Dan Rutherford as state treasurer consistently sounded the alarm to the voters.
Looks like we're finishing up this statement.
And red is the is the color. It's time for a fresh perspective in city government. I'm
Thank you.
on for that.
I guess yellow and red over there in case we were not alerted, sorry. And Mr. Langfelder to begin.
Thank you for hosting tonight's forum. I'm Jim Langfelder, currently serving as city treasurer and candidate for mayor. I'm a lifelong resident of Springfield. I worked my way through Lincoln Land Community College and Sangamon State University, graduating from both. My wife Billy and I have been married for 25 years. We have 3 children. Prior to being elected city treasurer, I worked in banking for 14 years. I've also been active in our community for decades, volunteering as a youth coach in athletics, as well as volunteering for nonprofit organizations and serving as president of Dane Thomas House Foundation, Springfield Center for Independent Living, and Leadership Springfield. I decided to seek the office of mayor because I have the sincere desire and passion to do what is best for Springfield. Springfield is a great community, but we are at a crossroads. We need to work together so our community can reach its fullest potential. As your mayor, I'm not going to worry about getting the credit, moving up the elected ladder, or re-election. What I'm going to worry about is getting the job done and doing what's best for Springfield. I want our city to be the model city with trust in city government, race relations, economic development, and city operations. Thank you.
I will now present the first question to Mr. Langfelder. If you were mayor and learned that police internal affairs files already asked for by a citizen were shredded, as happened in what some call the 2013 Shredgate incident, would you have done anything different from the way Mayor Houston reacted?
First, under the Langfelder administration, that would not have happened. As city treasurer, we follow the Secretary of State standards for records retention. I came from banking. You retain records for 7 years in banking, but what we do in city government is any information that needs to be preserved or discarded, you submit it to the Secretary of State. They inform us of when that information can be discarded, and that's the process we follow. How I would have acted differently is, one, it wouldn't have happened, but met it head on. As far as if the underling acted without my knowledge, something of that severity, they would not be an employee of the city for long.
Mr. Palazzolo.
As mayor, it's important to set the tone from the very beginning. And Palazzolo administration would have that tone set where any kind of activity or behavior in that regard would not be tolerated. And if indeed it became something that was brought to the attention of the administration, we would determine the facts and then administer whatever discipline was necessary after learning the facts of such an incident that would have occurred. But, as I said earlier, it's important to set the tone from the beginning that anything like Shredgate or Watergate or any other gate that has a reputation of history for not being the most positive thing to be reflective of a city or an administration, it would not be tolerated and that tone would be set.
Our next question first to Auditor Paul Palazzolo. Both candidates have expressed differing views on the best way to approach trash pickup in the city. Please detail what, if any, changes you would make to the current system, including billing, restrictions on what waste haulers could be used, and steps to reduce fly dumping.
Well, I was walking in a neighborhood and visiting with voters, and I had a chance to visit a lady on fixed income. She shares trash pickup with another lady that lives in a duplex next to her. As I said earlier, it's inappropriate to punish those who do comply because of a few who do not comply. And that's indeed what would happen to both of these ladies who share trash pickup. They would both have to elevate the amount of dollars that they have to spend out of their incomes for trash pickup being placed on their CWLP bill. We also have to consider other aspects of what this means. What if indeed CWLP was coordinating trash pickup billing, what if a ratepayer skips out? CWLP assumes the loss for CWLP, but who assumes the loss for the trash hauler in that regard? Many trash customers have specific or random schedules. Government does not need this extra responsibility on its plate. There will still be fly dumping that will need the enforcement that I'll step up as mayor of the city of Springfield.
Treasurer Jim Langfelder.
As mayor, we need to attack our issues. And fly dumping and trash pickup's been talked about like other issues for a long time. I'm going to be the mayor that's not going to kick the can down the road. We need to resolve issues. We need to accomplish tasks. As mayor, that's a viable solution, adding it to a utility bill that's used for numerous communities. That's how they resolve the issue. So that's one solution. I've also heard from constituents. It did not occur to me at the time where if you're on a fixed income, you need to spread your payments out a longer period of time. So under a Langfelder administration, we're going to listen to our public and be adaptable and come up with viable solutions. So if that's not the solution, what we need to do is bring all the impacted parties together, like the waste haulers, like mine being the most boisterous one, Lake Area Disposal. I would allow all the individuals, residents, to select their own waste hauler, but we need to have a solution for our problem. We talk about beautification all the time, and this is an area that drags us down. So as mayor, I'm going to attack those issues head on so we can work together to find a viable solution for everyone.
This next question is regarding city libraries. It'll go to Jim Langfelder first. When was the last time you personally used the city's public library and for what purpose? And also, do you see a need to bring back the city's branch libraries?
Aside from the most recent debate, I used it with my children. They're in, I have one that was in grade school, now freshman in high school, and we gone to the library to get research materials as far as that goes. Another great avenue is with regards to historic documents, learning from your past. So I've used in that regards. As far as branch openings, that's a area that might be, I believe that's probably gone by the wayside. What's happening now, though, which is good, is supporting neighborhood libraries. I know Enos Park has a neighborhood library in one of the churches there. So that's what I would advocate, is using our community organizations within the neighborhood. We have a lot of books that at times can be distributed out after their full usage at the library. So we would form partnerships with different neighborhood organizations, churches or schools, and provide whatever assistance we can with regards to that. So you don't necessarily have to come down to the library, hopefully you do, but we should have a means available within the neighborhoods themselves. And of course, the push now is technology and going online to receive a lot of information.
Paul Palazzolo, when was the last time you personally used the city's library and for what purpose? And what do you think about branch libraries?
Two instances was in personal use of the library. One, I needed a book on Vince Lombardi, and so I went to the library because I couldn't find what I needed at any of the regular bookstores. And secondly, my son Anthony needed to return his books, and I had to make sure that the late fees were kept up. So that was how I had personally used the library at Lincoln Library downtown. When it comes to branch libraries, indeed that may be something that is probably, with the resources that we have, the limited resources that we have, something that we'll not be able to resurrect in the near future. As mayor, it'll be important to make sure that we lead in a fiscally responsible manner, and I've demonstrated that from my years of service as Sangamon County Auditor. And so it would be nice if we could think outside of the box and expand the potential for offering either additional hours or branch service by forming a public-private partnership. But until that time, I think we need to be fiscally responsible and just focus on what the services we can have at the main branch downtown.
This next question, I'll start with Auditor Palazzolo. The race for mayor is officially nonpartisan, but just 3 years ago, in a fundraising letter in a partisan race for county auditor, you warned voters that your opponent was a liberal, that Democrats could make inroads into county and city governments, and it was time to, quote, stop Democrats from taking over the county board before they get a toehold. That raises the question, would either of you hire onto the city payroll people who are committed members of the opposite political party?
Absolutely. I would hire on committed members of the opposite political party, and I'd like to be clear in that I have worked extremely well with individuals of both party and other individuals who have not ascribed to a political party philosophy. The letter in question was a fundraising letter that often is sent out to inspire individuals to open their checkbook, write a check, and mail it in. But indeed, it's not reflective of how I will lead as mayor, working toward a city that is open, that is transparent, that works toward bringing new jobs and residents and customers and businesses to the city of Springfield, regardless of party affiliation, religious affiliation, or any other membership, even if they happen to be Rotarians while I'm a committed Kiwanis Club member.
Thank you. Mr. Langfelder.
I am a firm believer of leading by example. As treasurer, I had obtained the office after the previous treasurer, who was a Republican, had retired. I met with all the staff. I'm not sure their party affiliation. To me, it does not matter. It's a qualified workforce. And so I met with each one, asked what their ambitions were, what they would like to see differently within the treasurer's office, and I retained each and every one of them. And that's how we've worked together. And that's what I would do as mayor, is across all department lines, and it goes further than just employees. It goes to customers that come to the city. You know, I come from banking, so I call them customers, taxpayers, whatever you'd like, but what we are here to do is serve the public. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. That's how I operate the treasurer's office. That's how I will operate or make sure that all departments within city government operate the same way. And case in point is, I call myself a non-traditional campaigner. We go to all the doors. It doesn't matter if it's a registered voter or not registered voter, because they are the residents of Springfield. We're here to serve them. It doesn't matter if they're registered or not. If they have issues, we need to listen to them and solve the problems facing our city.
Our next question is about the residency requirement. You've both expressed support for having that rule reinstated for future city employees. Can you explain what, if any, correlation you see between residency and job performance? Mr. Langfelder.
As far as residency and job performance, there's probably no difference with regards to that. What I see is, again, with going back to the property taxes, we used to, with our property taxes, we were able to fund retirements, the municipal band, the library. Well, those days are gone where 100% of the property tax level for the city that amount goes towards retirements and pensions. So from that standpoint alone, I'm for residency. But I've always been for residency because city jobs are quality jobs. They provide good pay and good benefits, and those individuals that wish to work for the city should live in the city. And that impacted me from the private sector. When I was in banking, my job was eliminated. We went from 6 CRA coordinators down to 1, and if I wanted to retain that job, which I probably could have, I could have transferred up north, but I elected not to. I stayed with the bank in a different position. So we're not going to limit anybody's opportunity to work at the city, but if under a Langfelder administration, if they would like to work for the city, once the city council passes residency, then they would be required to move into the city with the exception of those that lived outside the city at the time of the passage of the ordinance.
Mr. Palazzolo, same question. What, if any, correlation do you see between residency and job performance?
There's really no correlation between residency and job performance, but as mayor, I'll work to make Springfield an attractive city that will be desirable to want to live in the city boundaries if you are going to be employed by the city of Springfield. As you mentioned, Jim, I am in favor of the residency requirement, and indeed there will be a grandfather provision for those who currently live outside of the city boundaries and work for the city. And there will be a time frame of adjustment for after the city council passes the ordinance, and then there will be time for an individual who is hired that does live outside the city to be able to move in, perhaps 9 to 12-month interim where they would have that opportunity to get moving into the city of Springfield. But it's important to have an attractive city where that even doesn't become a question, where individuals who believe in Springfield as a place of employment will also believe in Springfield as a place in which to live and raise their families and enjoy not only their work experience, but also their family and life experience. And so as mayor, it's important for me to have that goal on the forefront and to move all of elements of city government as well as to inspire the citizens of Springfield to have a constant belief in the city and in Springfield itself.
The next question goes first to Paul Palazzolo. The city's once bustling Cargill-Pillsbury plant at 15th and Phillips has been all but abandoned since 2001, much to the neighborhood's displeasure. Please walk us through what you believe are the challenges of developing that site and the tools that you would use to see that it gets developed.
Well, the challenges are obviously the structure that exists on the site itself. And there are several ideas that I would like to aggressively work toward with a team of not only the Chamber of Commerce and other individuals in economic development that we'd bring on the team, but we need to look at rail transportation companies, or even if we can encourage our federal officials to work with Amtrak itself to turn the rail yard aspect of the old Pillsbury site into a maintenance facility for railroad cars, or even Amtrak car maintenance and refurbishment. If there's some way that we can think a little differently, do some research, market what other aspects of not only the Pillsbury site offers, but what aspects Springfield offers, education, the medical community, other elements that would be attractive to a company that would have interest in using the components of that site to attract them here, offer the potential of what that site can be. Certainly it would be expensive, but if we can work toward the effort, we can find a railroad car maintenance effort that could really fit that spot extremely well.
Jim Langfelder, what do you think are the challenges of developing that site, and what would you do to actually?
Well, the challenges, you drive by there and you see the challenges. I mean, you have giant silos, and to dismantle those, and I'm sure there's asbestos issues and environmental issues. So it's really a difficult test to uphold. But what we don't want to lose sight of is those type of challenges. We should come together as a community to try to resolve those. Some of you may remember the Fiat Alice plant, and that was a factory off of Stevenson Drive that seemed like the same situation, insurmountable. But under my dad's administration, they did provide a TIF district. They partnered with the private sector, and they got the job done. And so I would use the same philosophy as far as the can-do attitude for that area, bring individuals together and develop the private-public partnership to try to resolve what's there now. The one thing is rail consolidation eventually was supposed to go all to 10th Street. So, maybe with that, we can expedite that and turn it into a bike path or what have you as far as that particular area. But first and foremost, we have to address the Cargill, the environmental issues that it brings to any type of development, and put the best plan in place for, so we can resolve and redevelop that property so it is useful.
This next question, start again, Mr. Langfelder. If another round of Army surplus giveaways were made available and the city could get a mine-resistant ambush protected, or MRAP, vehicle like the one Sangamon County has, would you want the city to take it, and why?
My philosophy for policing would be community policing. And an MRAP I would not think fits into community policing. What we need to do, and you see it all through the country, is animosity between different police forces, not necessarily Springfield, but what we want to do is tear down barriers, not create barriers. So under Jim Langfelder administration, our emphasis is going to be community policing, having relationships with all neighborhoods to address the issues that they face so we can basically protect and serve and keep our community safe.
Mr. Palazzolo.
As county auditor, I'm under the idea that we have to be as prudent and efficient as possible with how we use taxpayer dollars. If that offer were made to the city of Springfield, I don't believe that we would take advantage of that, because as mayor, I'll seek to work with the sheriff's office in case any kind of efforts are needed in that regard. We need to share resources. We need to work together on how we efficiently and effectively deliver services from the county level or at the city level or any other level of government. So in that regard, as mayor, I'll work toward being efficient with taxpayer dollars so that the upkeep or any kind of other efforts that are involved, we'd share resources with the county for a massive response for equipment like that.
We'd like to thank those who are listening this evening on News Talk 970 WMAY, and also those checking out the streams at WMAY.com and SJ-R.com. Our next question: after much initial fanfare, the Legacy Point development seems to have stagnated in recent months. What steps would you take to jumpstart development in this area? First to Paul Palazzolo.
Well, as a leader, jump-starting means bringing people together, perhaps even if it means, spending a retreat time in a room with pizza, food, lunch, to express how we can move forward on making sure that this becomes a reality. Legacy Point is going to be critical to job creation, to economic development, to providing ways that tourists and other individuals would be attracted to the city of Springfield. So it needs to be placed on a priority. And so if we can bring the players together from the elements of not only the city, but also the business components, and have the leaders of those opportunities in the room, let's move forward and let's get them all on one page so that we can begin turning those shovels to make that reality.
Jim Langfelder on Legacy Point.
That dovetails into my economic development plan, and you can go to langfelder2015.com for more information. But that's essential for target employment sectors or target industry sectors. What we should be doing is bringing groups together that have like interests or like businesses. In this case, it'd be developers. What's prohibiting their development? What's the obstacles they're facing with regards to expansion or business retraction or retention? And that's what we need to look at, work together so we can identify those obstacles and do what we can as a community to eliminate those obstacles so we can expand businesses, bring new companies in that are business feeders within regards to current businesses that we have. And then another key component to that is the education sector. We need to make sure that we have a qualified workforce, and that would be post-secondary education or with the unions and trades. And that's one important aspect. We'd work with the educational community to make sure that we have a qualified workforce to fulfill these living wage jobs that we can create.
I've been looking forward to asking this question. What do you admire most about your opponent, and what do you think are his weaknesses? And I believe Mr. Langfelder, this goes to you first.
Well, I like his gregariousness. He's fun-loving. So really, he's personable. And those are the strengths. The weaknesses I see is knowledge of city government, and that's what I bring to the table, is that in-depth knowledge. And it's just not being city treasurer. I've been watching and learning city government since 1979. I was a senior in high school. My dad first ran as streets commissioner. So I watched the transformation from city government to the aldermanic form of government. I watch what mayors have done well, what they haven't done so well, and I believe, or I know, I bring the tools and the talents that can make for a better transition, because specifically I would develop strategic ward plans to work with the aldermen and neighborhoods and businesses, other entities in the wards, so we can identify the issues they're facing and overcome those challenges. And that strategic plan would feed into the overall city plan, because that's the big disconnect. We have aldermen that are concerned, rightfully so, with their own area, but sometimes the city as a whole misses out. So what I plan to do is bring the city together so we can address all the challenges that we need to face.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please, that would be great.
What do you admire most about your opponent, and what are his greatest weaknesses?
I admire Jim's sense of family. That is extremely important, not only from the Langfelder perspective, but the Palazzolo and the Staub perspective. I think all three of the families are very close internally, and that is important to provide that sense of family, not only internally, but externally to the city of Springfield. In terms of challenges, I respectfully disagree with my opponent on city government awareness or knowledge. A lot of great mayors have served without having prior city experience. Mike Houston in 1979, Karen Acera in 1995. These are all individuals who came from different elements of the community, sometimes government, sometimes the private sector, and they were able to very efficiently and very effectively lead not only city government, but also lead the city of Springfield. And I believe if there's any part that I think that Jim might have some areas to improve upon, not only that would be, not his effectiveness would be perhaps in managing city government, but there also needs to be a component in this role of inspiring and leading the citizens of Springfield to move Springfield forward and bring new jobs, businesses, customers, and residents to the city of Springfield.
This one goes first to Mr. Palazzolo. And correct me if I'm wrong on any of these titles and either of your positions on this, but Mr. Palazzolo, you have said you want to create a new position of city planner, diversity director, and neighborhood revitalization director. Whereas Mr. Langfelder has said I believe he doesn't think those positions are needed specifically. Please explain your philosophy on why you need those three positions.
That's a good question. And it's a good question from the perspective of, because as mayor, you set the tone, you set the leadership pace, you set the focus, the vision, and the goals. And then the concept of leadership is that you bring individuals who have talent and skills and resources to fill in the roles that you need to move that vision forward collectively. A city planner would be an individual who can help move the city of Springfield forward and see where land use and zoning can be efficiently and effectively leveraged to bring more businesses and jobs and customers to the city of Springfield. A diversity director is an individual who can ensure that we are providing opportunities for all races and creeds and individuals who would like to find and make Springfield as their home and place to do business. You certainly cannot perform that function completely on your own as mayor. You have to be able to bring in talented individuals who can serve in that role. And certainly then adding that onto your own personal plate does not give it the full attention that a diversity director would deserve with the mission that it has to accomplish, or that person has to accomplish. And then thirdly, the neighborhood revitalization coordinator is an individual that would work to coordinate needs for making neighborhoods attractive and spotlighting those needs and being able to, with a neighborhood attractiveness level, bring jobs and businesses to the city of Springfield. And I see my time's done.
Right under the wire. Way to go. Jim Langfelder, about those three positions, and I believe you don't want to create those.
That's correct. Well, actually, city planner, we have one right now that is designated. They are contractual, and they do, I believe, receive about $65,000 a year, so that in itself says it. But really what we need to do is work smarter and work more efficiently, and that's what I intend to do as mayor. With regards to the diversity director, we currently have an Office of Economic or Community Relations. That is an area that is, its name says it's all. It's the community relations. So it does, from under a Langfelder administration, we're going to raise the level of that important office, but it's going to deal with diversity issues as well as any discriminatory practices internally in city government or externally in city government. If the city of Springfield is not meeting its obligations with regards to minority hiring or discriminatory practices, the mayor, being myself, should be held accountable, because they are taking the direction. I'm setting the philosophy, the culture of city government, and as, you know, I'm the diversity director for the city, because you have to lead as mayor. With regards to the neighborhood coordinator, I would specifically look at Public Works. They currently should be restructured, where you have the neighborhood aspect working in conjunction, and then you have the business function working in conjunction. So you do have that focus, and it's a matter of just prioritizing, working smarter, reorganizing what we currently have, and fulfilling the needs of our community.
We're about the halfway point of our forum this evening, and we built in time to have each candidate pose one question to his opponent this evening, and the opponent will then have 90 seconds to answer. So the first question would come from Auditor Palazzolo, directed to Treasurer Langfelder.
Jim, when Mike Houston was announcing his reelection, he mentioned that the city of Springfield was bankrupt and that funds had been commingled. A, was that true? And B, as treasurer, in the same manner that State Controller Dan Hines announced to the public and the voters that the state of Illinois was experiencing difficulty, and in the same way that State Treasurer Dan Rutherford consistently announced the troubles of the state of Illinois, should that have been part of your responsibilities as treasurer to communicate not just to the city council with a letter or a memo, but to announce to the voters throughout that time frame of the city's fiscal crunch that resulted in Mike Houston saying that bankruptcy was virtually on the verge of the city's situation in 2011?
Well, at that point in time, if anybody thought that the city was not having financial troubles due to the collapse of the economy, they must not have been paying attention to what's been said previously. Mayor Davlin, under his leadership, convened the Blue Ribbon Committee, which Mayor Houston served on, to develop alternative revenue methods to address the city's financial structure. And that's where the pilot was restructured, where they used a different formula to address the pension, the fire and police pension issue. Unfortunately, that had not happened. It's my opinion is that they used it to, under the previous administration, or the current administration, to balance the corporate fund budget instead of allocating those funds for their intended purposes. As mayor, what I would do is hold up to the original agreement with regards to the pilot, where if it's not going to be used for its intended purposes, that we would revisit it, revise it, and so we can have a stable utility as well as the tighten our belts at the corporate fund. With regards to the mayor's statement, you'll have to ask him, but if you listen closely, he always talks about cash balance. So the cash balance, what that is, real quick, your checking account, if you have your checking account and you have your house payment to make and your car payment still to make, your cash balance is in your checking account without those two payments being made. What I'm going to do as mayor is give the accrued balance with regards
Your time
to
is
city
up.
operations.
All right.
So they have the entire picture.
And now Treasurer Langfelder, your question to Auditor Palazzolo.
How is running for mayor different from running for auditor?
Well, definitely the boundaries are different. But there is a lot more opportunities to visit with voters on a more intensive basis. There are more localized events that do not require the need to travel outside of the city of Springfield, and you are able to get home a lot quicker when you're done campaigning in the city of Springfield. But the needs of both levels of government are virtually the same. You have to lead from a perspective of fiscal responsibility, and I have demonstrated that as county auditor for the last 12 years. The concepts and lessons learned from providing good fiscal prudence in county government are definitely applicable to the city of Springfield. But also, just as importantly, along with not only leading from a financial standpoint as county auditor, you also have to lead the city of Springfield from a dynamic standpoint as a leader of the city of Springfield, to inspire citizens to bring new opportunities to the city and consider the opportunities for other non-Springfield elements to come to the city and be a part of the fabric of what we have. So that's how it would be different.
Now back to questions from the panel, and this one will go first to Jim Langfelder, actually recommended by a WMAY listener who reflects back on the recent heavy snows and some neighborhoods complaining that they saw delayed attention and sometimes no attention from public works, snowplows, and salt trucks. How would you allocate resources in public works to make sure that we get the maximum benefit and that every neighborhood gets the attention that it needs in those critical times? Jim Langfelder.
That is an item that has come up when I've been out on the campaign trail, especially when it was closer or around the snowing time. So that is an issue, and I know they've cut back on a lot of personnel within Public Works, but again, we need to, we don't want to be penny wise, pound foolish. We need to allocate our resources as best as possible, and so it goes back to my strategic ward plans. If there's issues being faced in any area, we need to address those issues, even if it's reality or perception. If it's perception, we need to eliminate those perceptions. And one thing, I'm not sure if they currently do it, but we have GPS mapping. So what we should do is post the actual where the trucks are so individuals can see the progress being made, not only with Public Works area, but also CWLP, because CWLP used to be able to take care of the lake roads and things of that nature. So that way individuals can see the prioritization of when they would be expecting the snow plows to come down their streets. But of course, with the current system, you have to take care of the emergency routes first, the main arteries, and then you go to the secondary roads.
Paul Palazzolo, how would you allocate Public Works resources to make sure that all areas of town are receiving the attention they need?
We have to make sure that streets are safe, and as mayor, it will be a priority that you will be able to travel to your work, to your child's care, wherever you need to go to school. We have to make sure that resources are allocated to have streets clear. It is going to be important to have elements of how we have addressed snow coverage or snow removal on the website for the city of Springfield. I think it would be a great idea to have Springfield overnight, so that if processes of snow removal have occurred while snow came down over the evening hours, you'd be able to see where that has been taken care of by a website that you'd be able to see where progress has been made. One of the unique things about my leadership style is you'll see Paul Palazzolo engaged in sometimes on the trucks with those who are out in the middle of the night with snow removal. I think it's important not only to lead by example from that regard, but to see what they are experiencing, to hear what is going on as they conduct their responsibilities. That's just a leadership style that I've advocated, and you will definitely see that without fail, and not on a surprise nature. It'll be organized, and it'll be out there to show that I need to know and see how things are progressing and get feedback from those who are on the front lines and make adjustments for them to be able to continue to serve well.
This question comes from a State Journal Register reader. The 3rd Street Rail Improvement Project is running behind schedule. A public hearing has yet to take place. What would you do to advance this project? And also, should there be a quiet zone along that corridor in light of the increased traffic and noise? And this goes to Paul Palazzolo first.
Definitely, there should be a quiet zone, and we as mayor, and I will as mayor, work toward the federal officials that can help us complete the project. I have a good working relationship with Congressman Rodney Davis, and we'll see how the vacant seat in the future becomes filled. But it's important to have positive working relationships with individuals that will help us complete this important project. It will take a long time. Certainly, some good things don't always happen overnight. It will be a process that we will continue to work through, and as mayor, I will lead that process and not let the focus be lost in the years as we move toward the completion of the 10th Street corridor. I think it's also important to keep in mind the idea that we have to aim for the intermodal transportation facility that's dreamed for on between 9th and 11th on Adams. That has to be a critical component, and that requires cooperation with all of the municipal bodies that are involved in public transportation, as well as the private entities that are involved in transportation. That has to be led toward completion as well. And as mayor, that will be a priority focus, because once we have that completed, that will be an attraction that we can use to leverage more new businesses and jobs and potential customers to the city of Springfield.
Jim Langfelder, what would you do to advance the 3rd Street Rail Improvement Project, and also do you support a quiet zone along that corridor?
I support a quiet zone. Realistically, we're in tough budget times. So first and foremost, as mayor, what I would do is meet with not only the federal, but also state representatives. I've had conversations with Andy Menard. He had told me that the mayor could sign off and have the quiet zone implemented. They have resources identified, but I believe the mayor's concern is what's the timeline for moving 3rd Street over to 10th Street. And as you see now, the governor is making cuts, so I'm not sure of the state's commitment with regards to high-speed rail. And that's what we need to do, is get all the individuals that have input into the process, that can allocate the funds, and to make sure it does happen. But first and foremost, as mayor, what I want to know is what's the timeline and what are the identified resources to move the 3rd Street rail to 10th Street? Because that's the ultimate goal, is moving everything to 10th Street. So if we can expedite it and allocate all our resources towards that, that's what I'd be in favor of.
This goes to Jim Langfelder first. What's your favorite movie of all time and why?
Well, actually, I like Remember the Titans, and I watch it numerous times where I can recite some of the language. I might get it wrong, but in my mind, it's correct. So, but the reason I like it is, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and that's a time where you had individuals coming together, different races, and it reminds me of Southeast High School. Where I lived on Whittier Street, there's an individual that ended up going to Southeast High School. I know my wife, she was impacted by busing. She went to Washington Middle School from Cabbage Patch, over on Knox Avenue. And so what it was is a time that's uncertain. And that's always a nervous thing, is uncertainty. But what they learned is how to get along, and, and it ended up working out in the long run. And so that's why I like Remember the Titans, because it shows that you have challenges, you have uncertainties, but if you can come together as a group or as a community, you can accomplish the unthinkable.
Mr. Palazzolo.
Uniquely, my favorite movie is Rocky III. And here's why. You know the story of Rocky Balboa and how he is struggling to become the world's heavyweight champion. In number 1, he doesn't make it, it's a draw. In number 2, he does make it. But in number 3, the movie illustrates how Rocky Balboa got comfortable with his success. And in that comfort, he lost his title to a challenger who had what the theme song for that movie was, The Eye of the Tiger. He was able to regain that Eye of the Tiger, come back and reclaim the title. But here's why I like that film and what it can mean to any individual or company or even a city. If a city, a company, or an individual gets comfortable with their success, then they lose that drive, that eye of the tiger, that willingness to take risks and to move forward. Springfield, perhaps with state government as its crutch, as its safety net, lost its eye of the tiger to be able to attract new jobs and businesses and new residents and customers to the city of Springfield. As mayor, I'm going to work hard to lose that element of comfort so that we can start flexing our economic development muscles to be able to regain what we need to attract those business elements and workforce elements to the city of Springfield.
That's actually a great segue to our next question of the ongoing tug of war in Springfield between established businesses and new upstarts. We've seen it in everything from video gaming parlors to food trucks. Explain your philosophy on striking that balance and on how much city government should do to take sides in those debates. Paul Palazzolo.
I believe that the market force should determine success in business, but if you have a new idea that can infringe upon an individual's location or points of success, that playing field could perhaps take some review and ironed out in a manner that doesn't allow a existing business to be harmed by one who is able to take advantage of a situation. So I'm not for, when a business is working toward its completion, I'm not for getting in their way or putting more regulations in their way, but if it's going to damage another business by virtue of not having a level playing field that is not as fair as it could be, I think that's where city government needs to look at some ways that collaboratively with the entities involved and potential entities involved can work together toward a solution that's good for everybody.
Jim Langfelder, again, the question is between striking the balance between existing businesses and new upstarts, and how much should city government be involved in taking sides in that debate?
I view it, I boilerplate it down to even individuals. We're here to serve the public fairly, and that's what it comes down to. And so if there's any process that's unfair within city government, we need to correct that. With regards to the specific question with regards to food trucks, if it gives an individual an unfair competitive advantage over other businesses, then we need to take a look at that and come up with solutions. And so what I don't want happening is for food trucks to be able to roll up to a Maldner's restaurant downtown, open up and take business away from Maldner's. Here's an individual that pays property taxes, has an employee base downtown, and we have to make sure that there's not an unfair advantage that impedes on others' businesses. So what I would propose is taking a look at areas where there would be a balance. You know, I know they've been set up at parks, downtown specifically. I've heard complaints that there's no vendors or there's a lack of restaurants open on the weekends. That's where we should utilize them to that fullest capacity.
What is your favorite downtown festival and why? And what should be the city's role in supporting such events, downtown or otherwise? This goes to Jim Langfelder first.
Well, there's several. I'm downtown Springfield. I'm on the board, so of course Blues and Barbecue are Taste of Downtown. They're always good ones, but my favorite actually is Lincoln Fest. We should have a 4th of July celebration that's a regional attraction. And I know it's lost its flavor. What we need to do is make sure it's a family event, draw on our heritage. You know, we should be promoting Abraham Lincoln to its fullest potential because that is a draw, whether some individuals might not like it, but we have a mix. So you can have a draw to individuals that like the historic aspect, but on the second hand, we can have other events that would attract younger people of diverse backgrounds. So that's the festival that I would like to bring back as mayor, is a 4th of July celebration, because we're the home of Abraham Lincoln, and we should be celebrating our independence as much as anybody.
Blues and Barbecue would be my favorite, and it never has lost its flavor. And as far as expending city resources to shore up festivals, I believe that it's important that a festival should sustain its own success, and city resources should be used to make sure that the elements of downtown are clean once that festival has occurred. But as far as additional investments in the festival itself, I do not believe that that is a priority for city and taxpayer resources, but it is the city's responsibility, and as mayor, I'll ensure that festivals are successful because we have provided the necessary garbage pickup, we will have provided the necessary safety elements of a festival, and participate fully as mayor to provide that festival the welcome atmosphere and to bring as many families to that effort as long as it's appropriate.
This next question goes first to Mr. Palazzolo. Homelessness remains evident in Springfield. Are you for any changes in how services are provided to help those living on the streets? And what role do you see in this for city government?
Homelessness is an issue, and as mayor, I will work to elevate how private entities, charitable entities in the city of Springfield come together and work together. I have a history of experience as a board member for the Salvation Army and led a number of initiatives to help raise dollars for the Salvation Army to address the needs of homeless individuals. I've also been a member of the Springfield Urban League Board and was touched as a chairman of the scholarship committee for the G.B. Winston Scholarship of the Urban League to interview potential recipients of that scholarship, several of which were homeless students, and experienced that from listening to what those students were describing, what their life situation was like. It's important to bring those entities together, all of the charitable components of the city, Helping Hands, Salvation Army, Contact Ministries, Catholic charities. As mayor, we need to come together on a frequent basis with these charitable entities and social service agencies to ensure we're effectively and efficiently delivering the services that are required. And as mayor, it's important to be cheerleader for those elements of providing social service, to call attention so that citizens are aware of the need and help them raise the dollars that they need to make a difference. The Salvation Army is about to engage in a new facility that will serve even more homeless families, and I believe as mayor and as a board member of the Salvation Army that I can be extremely helpful in that critical function.
And Mr. Langfelder on the city's role and the homeless situation.
As mayor, you're the center of influence, and as mayor, what I would do is bring entities together to work together to address issues. And one of my proposals was having a housing council, not only looking at areas that, we had torn down buildings, how to rehabilitate those areas, redevelop those areas, but also homelessness would be part of that. So what you would do is bring nonprofit organizations, any organization that has that as an interest, working together so we don't split up the pie as far as revenue sources towards that. We work collectively together to maximize our resources. As mayor, you also have the opportunity to reprioritize community development block grant funds that we receive from the federal government. So we would I would analyze that with the Office of Economic Development, also with my Commission for Finance Development, and they would work hand in hand with the Office of Economic Development to prioritize community development block grant funds. Specifically, what I've done is I've been involved with housing projects through my banking days. I was appointed by Mayor Hesser to serve on a charrette that helped with the transformation from the John Hay homes to the Madison Park Place. I also helped achieve a grant through the Federal Home Loan Bank for infrastructure there, as well as worked with Pastor Doss at Abundant Faith Christian Center on the King's Court project, which is right across from Channel 20, which is now, it used to be dilapidated, now it's a occupied structure, gated community.
Candidates, you both intend to keep pursuing Hunter Lake, but history has shown us this is a debate that can drag on indefinitely. Please be specific as to what, if any, drop-dead date you would establish to either obtain permits for the lake or to drop the idea once and for all. Jim Langfelder.
First and foremost, we have about 90% of the property purchased, and what we need is a leader to get the job done, and that's what I intend to do. When the city council looked at purchasing a gravel pit as city treasurer, I issued a memo stating my concerns with the gravel pit, because if you looked at the reports previously, engineering studies said that the gravel pits were not a viable solution. What we need is a leader, a mayor that will provide the direction for all of us to go forward with Hunter Lake. As far as a drop-dead date, I think that's what has prolonged the extension of planning. I think we have not been committed, and I think we need a mayor that is committed with getting the job done, just like we did with high-speed rail. If you remember, the government was waiting for the community to get behind one plan, and then until they did that, that's when they came forward with the resources. That's the same type of mentality we have to take with our secondary source of water. But before that happens, what we need to do is take care of our only source of water, which is Lake 2. What I would do is make sure that we have a maintenance program in place. If we can dredge out the coves that would help with capacity, I would do that as well. I would fast track any annexations around the perimeter to make sure all properties, even though it's owned by the city of Springfield, they're not all annexed into the city of Springfield, so I would do that as well to protect our only water resource.
Paul Palazzolo, your drop-dead date for taking action one way or the other on Hunter Lake.
It's absolutely critical to have a secondary water source for the city of Springfield, and as mayor, I will be that leader that sets that drop-dead date. And if it's the end of the potential first term, that will be the date that we look at, and to be able to move forward on completing Hunter Lake. We're already spending dollars in investing an additional study with the results from Crawford Murphy and Tilley having come back so that we can offer that to the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA. But it is time to move forward, and leadership is required to move this project to either completion, or while we're moving toward that final decision on completion or abandonment, then we also need to be pursuing other alternatives for secondary water source while we're continuing the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers approval. You will have that definite leadership with Mayor Palazzolo.
We have one final question. This one comes from another State Journal Register reader. This particular reader notes that Governor Bruce Rauner's proposed reducing the city's share of state income tax, and meanwhile, there have been proposals to either end or cut the amount of money CDBLP pays to the city's general fund through the pilot program. The reader is wondering, how could the general fund take such a hit and still be able to offer basic services to residents? This is Paul.
Well, it's critical as mayor to grow the city of Springfield so that we have the additional revenue that we're looking for and so that city services can continue to be provided efficiently and effectively. Springfield needs to grow, and here's how. As mayor, I'll streamline city regulations to help speed up projects so that they're moving at the speed of business rather than the speed of government. We need to be business-friendly, and that means reducing hurdles for businesses and entrepreneurs to be able to be successful. As mayor, I'll attract businesses that are relying on what Springfield offers as its strengths so that we don't have to have individuals who are relying on 2 jobs just to get by. And as mayor, I'm going to be the city's salesperson in chief, and I won't need to send staff to certification classes to bring in new businesses. This is something that I feel passionately about in terms of growing Springfield and having the talents and skills to attract those new businesses, residents, customers, and jobs to the city that we absolutely need to have. When we grow our way out of the problem, that's when we'll be able to solve the problem, whether we experience cuts at the state level or whether we're making sure that CWLP's pilot payment are not diverted to the corporate side of the budget. We need to be fiscally responsible and grow our way into success in the city.
Jim Langfelder.
First, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, the first thing I would do is meet with Governor Rauner, because Springfield has a unique opportunity. Currently, we have a lot of state facilities that don't pay property taxes. We also have wind contracts that the state did not fulfill their agreement of purchasing 50% of the wind contracts. So an income tax cut to the city of Springfield is a trifecta. And I think Governor Rauner is a business person first and foremost, and I think he would listen to reason. And for that, after presenting that case, I think he would give the city of Springfield a reprieve. After all, we're their capital, Illinois. We're primed for making sure the state does operate as far as through a tax base. So going back to the economic development portion of it, which is crucial to growing your economy, and that's the best way to do it, what I would do is have I've had proposed my plan in place, and it would actually take a look at our inner core, our heart of our city. Because if you look at the peripheral of Springfield, it's doing pretty well, but the greatest propensity for sales tax and property tax revenue is within the heart of the city, and those are areas that, they cost less to develop. And a couple of initiatives I have proposed. One is having Wi-Fi using our current CWLP fiber optic cable system in targeted areas, as well as having an adaptive reuse ordinance in place that would make it more affordable to rehab older structures.
Okay. And now the moment I'm guessing the candidates have been waiting for. It's time for closing statements. And again, by the flip of the coin, the way it was, Mr. Palazzolo, 90 seconds each of you can get to sum up your remarks for tonight.
Well, again, thanks to everyone here in the audience, to Midwest Family Broadcasting, and to the State Journal-Register for allowing this forum for us to express our thoughts and views for the future of the city of Springfield. And indeed, this election is about the city of Springfield's future and not about dwelling on the past. Since announcing my candidacy, I've reflected on Springfield's present status and set a vision for the future of Springfield. I've led the conversation on issues important to Springfield voters, including sewer and infrastructure upgrades and improvements, CWLP, and the need for low rates, fiscal stability, and non-political leadership, public safety for our neighborhoods, revitalization of our downtown, and the importance of completing the 11th Street corridor to better link downtown with our academic hub and open the economic development possibilities that can go eastwardly as well as westwardly. Lifting all our neighborhoods to engage in community redevelopment and for new development. The appointment of a neighborhood coordinator, a diversity manager, and a city planner to bring about positive results in a dedicated, focused process, and restoring trust in city government through complete transparency, not only in city operations, but also in the person who will occupy the mayor's office. It's time to move forward. It's time for a fresh perspective, and it's time to bring leadership for Springfield as a great city that happens to be the capital of Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Palazzolo. Now, Mr. Langfelder.
Thank you, State Journal Register, WMAY, and everybody in attendance. We appreciate you taking the time to make an informed decision for Springfield's future. My whole life has been built on the importance of family and community. Springfield is a great community, but together we can make it greater for everyone. As I've gone door to door, many people ask me, why do you want to be mayor? And the answer is simple. I want what is best for Springfield. As mayor, I'm not going to worry about who gets the credit, moving up the elected ladder, or what I'm going to worry about is getting the job done. Our community is like a family. If one is suffering, we all suffer. As a community, we need to work together so everybody thrives together. My vision for Springfield is that Springfield would be the model city for other cities to follow, especially with regards to trust in city government, race relations, economic development, and city operations. As your mayor, I guarantee you that the mission and culture of city government will be openness, transparency, and doing what is best for Springfield. I encourage you to tell your friends and family to please vote April 7th for what's best for Springfield. I ask for your vote for Jim Langfelder for mayor. Best for Springfield. Thank you.
From WMAY, Midwest Family Broadcasting, and the State Journal Register, please join me in thanking our two candidates tonight. A replay of tonight's debate will be on sj-r.com and wmay.com. Please join me in the Community Unity Room to continue this conversation. And don't forget to do your civic duty on April 7th and come out and vote. Thank you very much.